Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some incredibly fun battles from the Ultra League featuring a perfect IV level 51 Shadow Beedrill. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Fernando Lovebox, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now it goes without saying, Beedrill in the Ultra League at level 51 only gets to about 2100 CP, so it's definitely not a Pokemon that's recommended if you're looking to gain Elo. However, Fernando took that as a challenge, and he's pairing it up with a Virizion and a Drapion. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're off to a tough start in the first match, leading Virizion into Galarian Weezing. The safe switch into the Drapion is going to lure out a Shadow Feraligatr, and honestly, despite the terrible lead, this is turning out pretty decently. Drapion with the energy advantage is going to be able to cleanly outpace the Feraligatr and potentially try and put pressure on a shield. Farm it up, going for another crunch, decision time for the opponent, they will commit the shield, and now they're looking to farm up quite a bit of energy. At this point, I think you just let the Drapion go. Even if the Feraligatr does Ice Beam the Virizion, Virizion can survive it. So in comes the Virizion, and they didn't build up. I think this is actually a crunch Feraligatr, and that does make sense considering they're leading a fairy, because otherwise they'd be really weak to Tentacruel. So they are running crunch on their Feraligatr to provide a little bit of coverage into that Pokemon. Aggressive switch into that perfect IV Shadow Beedrill and getting the snipe down. In the back is Cobalion, and this endgame could get interesting. Cobalion, of course, needs to land a Stone Edge to deal meaningful damage here. Drill Run is going to connect, and to be honest, that did more damage than I was expecting. Beedrill, of course, only 2100 combat power, as we do see a bait from the Cobalion. And now Beedrill going for an X-Scissor. X-Scissor would be heavily resisted, but the Cobalion is already quite low. Cobalion firing off more energy. We are going to see the shield from the Beedrill, and there's the Stone Edge. That proves to be a great shield. In comes the Weezing. Weezing going to get outpaced, unable to make it overheat before the Drill Run lands. Drill Run, big damage to the Weezing. If Weezing has overheat, they have to use it here. Brutal Swing will not be enough to knock out. They do go for the Brutal Swing. It does not KO. Beedrill gets the farm down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We hear in the next match, Virizion versus Virizion. Fernando is the first to switch out as he sends in Drapion. Drapion will be able to absorb the Sacred Sword, no problem. Opponent is going to switch out and bring in a non-Shadow Feraligatr. Crunch will do solid damage, but against the non-Shadow, it's not particularly threatening. Opponent actually ends up shielding the first, which to me is a pretty massive surprise. Drapion more than happy to let the move go. Hydro Cannon not going to be enough to knock out, and Drapion will get to connect with another crunch. Now the question will be, can Drapion hang on to make it to another move here? It's going to be close, it gets there, but loses the CMB tie. So Drapion is just going to let itself go, because honestly, getting shield advantage is very nice. Opponent is going to pivot out into their own Virizion, and they are going to regret that decision as in comes Beedrill. Beedrill thinks about it, respects the Stone Edge, but the opponent doesn't have it. It's just going to be a Leaf Blade, and Virizion in its worst nightmare right now, going up against a 2100 CP Shadow Beedrill. Beedrill gets a full farm down, in comes Feraligatr, but Feraligatr didn't bank a move from earlier. X-Scissor is going to KO. In the back, oh no, it's Giratina, and with the Drapion God, this team is very weak to Giratina. Drill Run is going to be shielded, opponent understanding that that is the move that's going to do the most damage. But Beedrill got so much energy by farming down that it actually gets to another one. Now we're going to see the switch into Virizion, and after landing that Drill Run, this might actually be a winnable game. I'm in a little bit of disbelief here. When the Giratina entered the field, I thought it was over. But we're going to see Virizion tanking these hits, and these Leaf Blades, while they don't do a lot, Virizion can get to a lot of them. Leaf Blade is going to land. Virizion going for another Leaf Blade. Again, very nice charge attack timing here from Fernando, throwing the one and the move, and now you just want to get to the next one. Honestly, no matter the timing, getting this next Leaf Blade should guarantee the win for Virizion. Virizion going to fire off the Leaf Blade into Giratina. While it will not KO, it's going to get that Giratina very low. Giratina firing off a last second charge move. He's gonna save the shield. He's gonna win it with the Shadow Hundo Beedrill. Down goes Giratina, and that's a good game. Great lead in the next match. Virizion versus Cobalion. Opponent is gonna save switch into a Gyarados. Not a Pokemon that I've seen a lot of as of late, but a very cool pick nevertheless. Gyarados ends up shielding up the Leaf Blade, trying to preserve health, and now Drapion enters the field of play. Getting Drapion on a matchup that isn't Cobalion is very, very good for Fernando, because obviously that's a very uncomfortable matchup. Basically, any Dark Poison into Cobalion is going to have a terrible day, so finding some value for the Drapion that isn't against that Cobalion is absolutely terrific. Gyarados lands a couple moves, but cannot get through the HP of this Drapion fast enough. The Crunch is going to be shielded. It gets a defense drop as well, and now in comes Beedrill. Beedrill going to use a shield here. This, of course, I mean, I was going to say it wouldn't do a lot, but it is a 2100 CP Mon, so honestly it might still do quite a bit of damage. What do they have in the back? They have Cresselia. Oh my goodness. They have Cresselia, and they don't really know what to do against a Beedrill. That X-Scissor did way more than I was expecting. Opponent not even building up to the Future Sight. They go for a Grass Knot, and that's going to do less than nothing. In comes Cobalion. Cobalion now going to get smacked with a Drill Run, and this Beedrill is putting in a surprising amount of work. Cobalion just opting for the Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword, that's not going to KO. The Beedrill able to hang on. We're going to see the switch out, the banking of the move, and the switch into the Virizion. And now Virizion just completely in the driver's seat. Cobalion, it looks like may have been a CMP tie there. We'll have to see the Sacred Sword. It is going to be the CMP tie. And Fernando is running a traded Virizion, so it is going to lose CMP versus most other Virizions, just due to the fact that most people are going to be running raid IV ones that have a minimum of 10 attack. Firing off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to connect, and there's the combo play right on cue. The X-Scissor saved from earlier knocks out the Cresselia and takes the win. Hopping into the next match, picking up an incredible lead, Virizion into Shadow Ampharos. Ampharos' typical moveset is walled here. Ampharos staying in to start with. We're now going to see a switch out into Poliwrath, and Poliwrath, I believe that's actually a Mudshot Poliwrath as well. Poliwrath's fast moves did get a pretty significant rework with, of course, Mudshot, having less energy generation but doing more damage, and Counter just getting a strict nerf. So Virizion is very fine taking this Icy Wind, because since they're Mudshot, they're going to have faster pacing, but they're just never really going to be able to farm stuff down. In comes the Beedrill. Beedrill can no-shield, as Poliwrath will fire off the Icy Wind. That does so much damage. Beedrill looking for the farm down, but it just cannot get there. The Poliwrath on 1 HP, making the last second Icy Wind, as the Poison Jab registers and picks up the KO. In comes Ampharos, just gonna fire off this Drill Run. This is a debuff Drill Run, and it still does quite a lot of damage. Beedrill making it to the X-Scissor. X-Scissor will KO unless the opponent is willing to shield. They're just going to let this through. In the back, it's going to be Granbull, and this game is over, as you can just bring in the Drapion, and Drapion is going to absolutely crush Granbull's hopes and dreams. The opponent trusting in that Charmer to get them the win, but it's just not going to happen. Drapion committing the shield. We will see the crunch from the Granbull fishing for the debuff, but even if they get it, it's not going to matter. Aqua Tail connects onto the Granbull, and to add a little insult to injury, Virizion is able to take the win with a double kick. Great lead in the next match, Virizion versus Licky Licky. The Licky Licky is staying in, which to me is a massive surprise. This means that the Virizion will have value in the back, because my goodness, you do not stay in this matchup unless you are incredibly, incredibly weak. They're farming up so much energy. Sacred Sword lands. They're on basically 1 HP. They save switch into Cresselia, and they're going to be very sad they did that as Drapion enters the field of play. Drapion able to tank 2 Moonblasts from Cresselia very, very comfortably. As you see, the first one doesn't even come close to doing 50%, and now Drapion can start unleashing these crunches. Crunch is going to land. Do we see the defense drop? No, we do not. That means Cresselia can tank the next move, but not very well. It's still going to be very, very low. We actually see a Moonblast debuff from that Cresselia, so the Cresselia getting a bit of good luck going its way. The Crunch is going to be no-shielded, but the Drapion just with such a pacing advantage, firing off another Crunch at the Cresselia. Cresselia does elect to commit the shield, and Drapion just going to let this go. Cresselia went for the Moonblast, so they could be on Moonblast Future Sight. Well, we're not going to find out, because Virizion saved the Leaf Blade from earlier and will pick up the knockout. Opponent bringing back in the Licky Licky. I believe they have like 8 rollouts of energy here. They're going to go for a Body Slam. That's all they're going to get. Oh no, they have a Greninja in the back. Trainer, you may have forgot about something when team building here, and its name is Virizion, as Virizion is just going to absolutely destroy this Greninja. And yeah, the opponent knows it's over. They're just going to let it through. Good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Virizion into Ampharos, the non-shadow variant, but still an amazing lead. Opponent switches out into Clefable, and Clefable, that's probably not what they were expecting to see, as in comes Beedrill. Beedrill is going to use a shield there, as Clefable is going to begin the Swift spam. Swift lightning fast. It is every 4 fairy wins from this Clefable. We're now going to see an X-Scissor fired at the Clefable. Clefable actually ends up letting that go. Oh, the X-Scissor farm down doesn't quite work out. Clefable tanking it on 1 HP to make one final move. In comes the Ampharos, but Beedrill able to hang on, was only 1 away, gets to the Drill Run. Drill Run is going to be shielded, and getting that shield back is very nice. Even if the opponent does have Focus Blast is not going to do a lot. In this matchup, Leaf Blade is actually the move that you want to go for, as Leaf Blade is going to be more efficient overall. They have a lot of energy, and they don't have the Focus Blast. It's going to be the Trailblaze, and now we do see Fernando going for the right move, going for the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to land, but if they're running Trailblaze Brutal Swing, then they're just completely walled. So they're going to go for another Trailblaze, and now we see what they had in the back, why they couldn't switch out. They had the Feraligatr lurking, and this is just over. You land the Leaf Blade, you bring in the Drapion, and the opponent will resign the match. Hopping into the next match, terrible lead, Virizion into Florges. Gonna save switch to the Drapion. Opponent gonna respond with Feraligatr, and baiting this out is honestly terrific. Florges is a Pokemon that has picked up quite a bit in terms of usage post Fairy Wind buff. However, I think arguably if you're going to be running a limited coverage Fairy type, you're probably going to want to stick with Clefable, because at the very least, Clefable has a pacing advantage there, where Swift is every 4, and Disarming Voice is every 5 on the Florges. And here we actually see Drapion managing to flip switch versus Feraligatr, the opponent not willing to commit to that matchup. And that means their Florges is going to get absolutely shredded by this Beedrill. Florges gets crunch debuffed as well, forced to go for the Disarming Voice to secure that knockout. In the back, oh no, it's Giratina again! Oh boy, this is not looking good. The opponent can just double shield the Giratina, and that Dragon Claw does so much damage. Beedrill firing off the Drill Run. Giratina no shields! Why would they no shield? The opponent, this is a completely one game for them, but they found the lose con. I don't know if they were trying to call it X-Scissor bait or what, but you have to shield that as the opponent. That's the move that's going to do the most damage. I guess maybe they didn't respect the damage output from a 2100 CP Pokemon, but that's going to cost them this entire game. Oh my goodness. Virizion still holding on to those 2 shields, still not going to use them. The Dragon Claw getting Virizion very low. Virizion very close to 100 energy. Firing off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to be shielded. Virizion throwing 1 in the move would be better here, as that way you aren't giving them a full sneak. Opponent is going to end up going for a farm down, but they do not get it. Virizion, 1 final Leaf Blade, forcing the shield. In comes the Beedrill, and still with 2 shields remaining, this is a winning end game. The opponent can fire off Dragon Claw after Dragon Claw, but in Go Battle League, you can never hold 3 charge moves. Beedrill farms down Giratina. In comes Florges, but Florges does not have the energy. Drill Run reached, Drill Run knocks out, and that's game over. Hopping into the next match, leading Virizion into a Shadow Cacturn. Look at the spice from the opponent. They're going to switch out into Drifblim. Drifblim answered with Drapion. It is very fortunate that this Drifblim was on the safe switch. A Drifblim lead would instantly be game losing, as of course the Beedrill and the Virizion are both completely walled by it. So some very good luck here for Fernando. Crunch shielded up by the opponent. Opponent really going to try and make a play for switch. Unfortunate timing there, letting through an entire free Astonish. We see a double shield from the opponent, but the Crunch actually does get the debuff. And that can partially help offset some of these Icy Wind debuffs. Opponent is going to switch out into the Cacturn. And this Cacturn is about to be very sad, as it's swiftly answered with Virizion. Cacturn goes for a Trailblaze. Virizion shields just in case the Cacturn was running like a weird coverage move. I'm honestly not 100% sure about Cacturn's full move set. I noticed Trailblaze and Dark Pulse, but outside of that, it's entirely possible that it might have a coverage move. Opponent can just bring back in the Drifblim, or in this case, they're actually going to bring in the Weezing, because both are going to be walling this move set. Leaf Blade not going to do a whole lot. Virizion continues to farm up, and just to try and chip away at the health slowly over time. you really need to preserve the Drapion for dealing with that Drifblim later because you're so weak to the Drifblim without it. So just spamming out Leaf Blade after Leaf Blade after Leaf Blade. Opponent needs a Play Rough or an Overheat here. There's the Play Rough, and then will pick up the knockout. In comes the Beedrill. We see the switch back into the Drifblim, but Drifblim not going to get to the move. Drapion gets the crunch. Big damage to that Drifblim. Drifblim forced to fire off energy, and this should just be game over. Icy Wind picks up the knockout. In comes the Beedrill. Beedrill is gonna poison jab down a Drifblim. You love to see it, and exit with the Drill Run loaded. Drill Run, good night to Galarian Weezing, and that is a good game. All in all, these are some very entertaining battles, so massive thanks to Fernando for sending in the footage. I do really like seeing a lot of these like rarer to get Pokemon, like Shadow Perfect IV Pokemon obviously are extremely rare. People only usually have a couple on their account. So being able to see one that obviously I don't have is very cool because when you have a Shadow Perfect IV, it does make sense a lot of the time to try and max it out because it's a very cool collector's item. And in this case, it didn't really fit in either Great League or Ultra League. But Fernando said, you know what? Close enough to Ultra League, I'm going to run it, and was able to get some fun wins along the way. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.